Hello, and I am back with more tips to help you with starting, growing, and scaling your trucking business, right? So, the next tip that I want to share with you is don't try to do everything yourself. I know that typically speaking, when you talk about an entrepreneurial journey, a lot of people feel like solopreneurs, like they're doing it all themselves. Everything has to fall on their plate. We feel like we can do things cheaper, we can do things ourselves. But honestly, that does nothing but hold us back. As a matter of fact, honey, somewhere, who I don't know who it was, where it was, whatever, but they basically said that once you hit six figures, if you don't hire a team, you're not going to go much further past that, right? So what I'm telling you is, trucking, you could make six figures on your own in a year in trucking like it ain't nothing, right? So you got to make sure that you're willing to hire a team, get people in place that are there to help you and get you on the path that you need to be, honey, because this ain't about this is not a contest to see, oh, how much of this can I get done on my own, right? That ain't what this is about. This is about how much can I grow? How big can I grow my company, right? What is this trucking empire that I can create? But you're not going to be able to do that alone. So when I say you need to be willing to, you might need to be willing to hire people. You might need to be willing to partner with people, but you're not going to be able to do this all by yourself. There is a shit ton of money in this industry, right? And you can't get it all alone. That's it. Period. End of story. Okay? So hire people, get people on your team, do whatever you need to do to foster that growth in your trucking business. The next tip I would like to share with you all is read the book Profit First. Hold your mule. That's the wrong book. Here it is. Read this book. It's called Profit First, okay? So it says that it will transform your business from a cash-eating monster to a money-making machine. Now, I think this book is really important because one of the things that it has you do is it has you open multiple accounts. Just like I said, you want your numbers. You want to be able to see your numbers at a glance. One of the things that I truly appreciate from the Profit First strategy model, whatever you want to call it, is that it shows you how to utilize multiple bank accounts so that you can see what you're working with at a glance. So you might have an expense account where you got $13,000 in expenses. You want to make sure you keep depositing into that account, right? You know that you need a tax account. You know that you're going to have an account where all of your income comes into. You might have your operating account for day-to-day expenses, right? So it breaks down all of these different accounts that you should have and how you should be using and transferring money between them. But the most important thing is you're going to take your profit out first, right? As opposed to what we've been traditionally taught, which is profit is income minus expenses. What they're saying is you take your profit out first, right? So this is a really, really good book. I think you should definitely purchase that. I got mine on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure that you can go ahead and get it like with the Kindle, like what's it called? An audio book situation. But yeah, Profit First, really good book. Get that, and then hire an accountant that practices the Profit First accounting model. All right. The next tip is, honey, buying more trucks does not automatically guarantee that you're going to make more money. Okay? Buying more trucks actually means more liabilities, right? It always means more liabilities before it will ever mean more income. All right? So let me just break that down to you. When you buy when you're running one truck, you might buy a second truck. So you have insurance policy on one truck. Let's just give it a even roundabout number of $1,000 per month. Your insurance for one truck is $1,000 per month. Even if you get a discount for adding a second truck, now your expenses for insurance are going to be, let's just say, $1,500 a month, right? So at $1,500 a month, you have these two trucks. So that's $750 a month if you wanted to break it up evenly, right? Per truck. Well, if truck 2 breaks down, that means that truck 1 is now responsible for $1,500 as opposed to the $1,000 that it was responsible for originally. In addition to that, there are other expenses, whether it is, a truck payment, shop rent, garaging. All of these things are going to increase. And nobody cares if your truck is broken down. If your truck is broken down, you can't take your insurance off, right? So, just because you buy more trucks, it doesn't automatically guarantee you more money, but it automatically guarantees you more expenses. Please keep that in mind. So, just hopping out here and saying, okay, well, this truck made me $5,000 per week, so this truck is going to make me $5,000 per week. It doesn't automatically mean that, because you could have 2 different drivers in 2 different trucks. This truck might be able to do more work. This truck might be a lemon. Like, you just don't know. So just because you add another truck does not guarantee your income is doubled. It just guarantees that your expenses have increased. All right. The next tip is, you have to not focus on making money. I know when you start a business, the goal is to make money, right? The goal is that you're building a business that is sufficient enough that it's going to generate money for you, and you don't have to work elsewhere, right? You don't have to work for someone else. Well, the thing is, while that's important, your focus should be safety, because if you run a safe trucking business, then you are able to reap the benefits of the income, right? But if you're running a janky operation where you're not doing preventative maintenance, where you're not in compliance, if you're not focusing on safety of your drivers and of your equipment, then things are going to fall by the wayside, which are going to create larger expenses for you, which means you ain't getting to the money no quicker, right? You might not even be getting to the money at all. So focus on safety. Focus on having procedures and policies in place that are required by your insurance and DOT, right? Focus on putting these things in place and making sure that you and your team are adhering to those safety rules and regulations, right? And then the money will come. Because as long as you're staying compliant and as long as you're making sure that things are safe, that's leaving less room for things to go wrong. The thing that eats into your expenses the most is things going wrong and you having to put out fires. So if you are fireproofing your business, then those fires are either not going to start, or you're going to be well prepared to put them out quickly, as opposed to having to come and be reactive. So what I mean by that is, if your drivers have safety protocols that they have to follow, and they are following them, then they might realize that things are wrong with the truck, or they might recognize things before they go wrong, as opposed to someone who doesn't do their pre-trip inspections, someone who just doesn't care. They hop in your truck and someone who doesn't care about doing pre-trip inspections. They hop in your truck, get to going, and then all of a sudden they have some major accident or major equipment failure that ends up costing you because there's a tow truck involved or there's an accident and insurance involved. Whereas if there were safety protocols that they were held to, then they would have nipped some of this in the bud before it was ever able to happen. Focus on the safety and the money will follow. Okay? So let's see. The next tip that I can give you is you should really adopt the mindset that there is no such thing as competition. Ain't no competition over here. What we like to call competition is our collaborators, right? there is no competition. There's only collaboration. There's no competitors. There is only collaborators. Because in our trucking business, within 6 months of being in business, we had turned the competition into income streams, right? We were able to find things that our competition needed to operate their business, and we were able to turn competitors into people who trusted what we said, who needed the help that we provided, and that were willing to pay us for those things, right? And so I just don't subscribe to, oh, these are my competitors, let me not help them, let me make sure I'm ahead of them. No, every single time I went out and I helped a competitor, it put me in a better position. Whether it was me giving work to competitors, whether it was me selling information to competitors, when I know what my competitors are going through. I know what they need. I know what problems they have. So instead of trying to one-up them, I'm here to help them. And guess what that did? It helped me to grow my business, because when I had contracts and I needed work done, then my competitors were available to me because they trusted me, because I was always looking out for them, right? So nip the competitors in the bud. We only doing collaborators over here. All right, and so along with our last tip about making sure that we don't focus on competitors, instead we turn them into collaborators, what you want to do is turn that competition or that collaborator into cash. And so what I mean by that is not just, oh, let me find work, let me, find opportunities to make money off of the competitors. You also just want to think about the relationships. We talked about relationships, with companies you want to work for, but you need to have relationships with companies that you work with, right? And so I mentioned that you want to collaborate with your competition. You might want to partner with them. If they have a service that they are strong in, you might have something that complements them, and you all can get a job done together. There have been many times where I was able to get an opportunity simply because my company was minority certified, but I only owned one dump truck and we needed 10 trucks a day to fulfill the job. So now me and my competition are working together. We ended up getting a $20 raise over every other company that we were working with, and I was able to pocket more money myself, right? So it's all about making sure that you take your competition, you turn them into collaborators, and then you turn that relationship into cash, not just for you, but for both of you. Make sure things are mutually beneficial. What are you going to benefit from this relationship or from this particular opportunity? And more importantly, what will the other people benefit? Same thing that I said earlier, where you want to focus on turning your competition into collaborators. That collaboration relationship I just feel like I don't need to talk about that because it's the same thing. So the next tip that I can really give you is that you want to make sure that you always have a shit ton more money than what you thought you needed. I know that escalated rather quickly, but honey, I didn't want to just say more money. I wanted you to know you need to have a lot more money than you ever thought you would need in order to actually be successful. Again, a million parts to operating a trucking business. The expenses are very high. They come one after another. Sometimes you may not get a check for a week or 2 weeks, and you have expenses today. Better yet, when that check does arrive, if you're not managing things properly, that check is already spent, right? So the goal should always be to make sure that you have more money, more capital, more credit, whatever it is that you're using. You want to have more than you ever thought that you would need. So for example, we purchased our truck. I tell this story all the time. We purchased our truck for $7,500. We picked the truck up. We drove 3 miles down the road. The truck broke down and we had to put another $4,800 into it. We didn't have $4,800. All we had was the money to buy the truck, right? Because we were just so gung-ho, like, we're going to buy this truck and we're going to figure it out. Well, we bought the truck, then we borrowed $3,500 from the Bay's aunt to be able to get the tags and insurance on the truck. And then we ended up having to use my mom's credit card for the $4,800 simply because the truck broke down and we didn't have the extra funds that we needed. You know what we had? We had exactly what we estimated that we needed. We got enough money up to buy the truck. We got enough money up to put the tags on the truck, but we didn't have any incidental money. Big mistake. And the problem is that there are people actually out here telling you how to get into this business with the absolute bare minimum, and they're not preparing you for the fact that you're going to need double the bare minimum in some cases. You could buy a brand new truck and that brand new truck could break down a few miles down the road. That doesn't mean that the warranty 100% is covering that. Okay, so have more money than you ever thought you would need. Make sure that you have access. And then once you have that money, then you need to have another backup on top of that one. Okay, access to credit, building business credit is going to be very important and crucial in you being able to stay afloat, because most people's trucking businesses fail, not just because they were not in compliance, but also because they did not have the capital available to stay in compliance. The next tip that I want to share with you is that you have to use other people's money every single chance that you get, right? Please do not end up like me, where I got so caught up in, I'm not in any debt, I'm paying cash for everything. Like, honestly, my cash could have gone a lot further for me if I had utilized other people's money. And I ain't talking about asking my mama for money, which I did. What I'm talking about is like using business credit, using credit cards, lines of credit, whatever you can get access to, as opposed to just using your own money. When we were going to finance our first truck, the guy asked us, well, how have you don't have any credit history, so how have you been managing or taking care of the expenses in your business for 5 years? And I told him, with my money, with cash, and he's like, Miss Phillips, you should not be running your business off of your cash and your savings. You need to keep your money in your account, and you're supposed to be using other people's money to go ahead and keep your business operating. And that didn't make sense to me, because we're always taught that you should not be going into debt, right? But the reality is that this money is out here and it operates completely different than what traditional or personal lines of credit and credit cards operate. The business side of credit is completely different, right? And so you should be, at the first chance that you get, you should be utilizing other people's money as often as you possibly can, because the truth of the matter is, where we were taught that you should use the bare minimum possible, you should be utilizing as much as you can, because the more of other people's money that you use, the more that people will give you. The larger your credit card limit is on credit card A, when you go to apply for credit card B and they see that you have that larger limit and you're using other people's money responsibly, they're going to match that or give you more money, because they're saying, well, hey, they're managing that good. Let me give her the same thing, right? So if you are only using the bare minimum, $100 here, $100 there of other people's money, you're never going to be able to build and utilize the business credit to its full potential. This business, this industry of trucking puts you in a unique situation when it comes to credit and business credit, because what you're able to do is leverage the high expenses, and you're able to leverage the high income potential, and to really to get out there and get access to huge credit limits. This tip is really, really, really crucial. I want you all to know that unlike many industries where there's a lot of contracts and a lot of signing this and signing that, a lot of things in this industry are super fast paced. You make decisions, you might hop on a job opportunity super quick, and sometimes you don't get the proper paperwork in order. I highly encourage you to get things in writing whenever possible, whether it's a text message, an email, a letter via snail mail, whatever it is that you have to do. You want to get it on record, whatever it is that you're doing, as much as possible. Again, there's going to be times where you're out and about. You might need a tire changed out on the road, and you call a mobile tire guy, and he only accepts cash, right? So you need to be keeping a record of that for yourself, right? The other thing is when you're working with people, so let's say you're booking loads with a broker or with another company, instead of just sitting on the phone with them and only corresponding via the phone, you might want to have some sort of written correspondence where you can refer back to and say, well, on this date and time, you said X, Y, and Z, right? So I like to do a lot of communications with people that I'm working for via email and or text, so that there is a chain that I can go back and refer to. If I call Bobby and I say, listen, you told me on the phone that I was getting paid $20 a ton and you paid me $12. If you only pay me 12, I don't have any recourse because, you just told me over the phone, versus I'm texting you like, what's the rate? You give me the rate. Now I got screenshots, or I have emails where I can go and refer back to and say, hey, okay, get your shit together because this is what you said. Got it? Whenever you can, get things in writing. I encourage you to go ahead and get your CDL. Even if you have no intentions on driving your own vehicle, even if you know that you're going to hire drivers, I encourage you to get your CDL, because it's going to make things not only easier for you in many cases, but it's also going to make things cheaper for you.